This year, we will commemorate the 60th anniversary of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which tooled the federal government to be a greater purveyor and protector of the rights of Black people and expanded access to public accommodations in an era churning from the human rights crisis of Jim and Jane Crow. In the meeting in the White House sometime last month, I recalled the stark and grisly reality that very little has changed since the passing of that act in 1964. I know we've had a Black president. I know that there is a Black woman in the second seat. I understand that there is a Black woman on the Supreme Court. But if you just look at the numbers, very little has changed since 1964. Since 1964, the African American unemployment rate has persistently run twice as high as the white unemployment rate. Since 1964, America has engaged in 4 wars, is now flirting with 2 wars, one on the verge of nuclear disaster. Since 1964, law and order politics has skyrocketed the prison state. Since 1964, the number of incarcerated people in the U.S. has gone from less than 200,000 to now more than 2.2 million. Since 1964, voting rights have been compromised, and now politicians elect their voters instead of voters electing their politicians. Since 1964, Black college graduates still make less than white high school graduates. Since 1964, the number of police killings a year has surpassed the number of lynchings per year in its highest era. As much as we want to celebrate the fact that things have changed, my family, very little has changed since 1964. That's because in America, we deal with what Ibram Kendi says, that whenever we have racial progress, there's also racist progress. That the more we gain in our rights, the harder folk who don't want us to have our rights fight so that they will be rolled back. One writer says it this way: whenever there is Black progress, there's always a white backlash. Did you all hear what I said? Very little has changed since 1964, because whenever there is Black progress, there is always a white backlash. After 246 years of slavery, Reconstruction gave us the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. We elected the first Black public servants. We witnessed the formation of Spelman and Morehouse and Howard and Fisk. However, after all of that progress, there was a white backlash. After all of that progress, the original American terrorists, the KKK, lynching and the convict leasing system, and the ruling of Plessy versus Ferguson legalized, separate, and unequal in this country, because whenever there is Black progress, there will always be a white backlash. During the Civil Rights era, we saw progress, didn't we? Brown v. Board of Education, the Civil Rights Act of 64, the Voting Rights Act of 65, the Fair Housing Act of 68. But whenever there is Black progress, there will always be a white backlash. Nixon was elected president in 68 on a law and order platform that paved the way for the Southern strategy and mass incarceration, because whenever there is Black progress, there will always be a white backlash. In 2008, many of us celebrated the election of Barack Hussein Obama as the 44th president of the United States, the first Black president. Whether we agreed with his policies, there was a sense of cultural capital to know that there was someone that looked like you, that had a family, that had experiences like yours, was now sitting in the strongest seat of power. But everyone knows that whenever there is Black progress, there will always be a white backlash. The Tea Party vowed to take the country back. Police brutality escalated. Healthcare was jeopardized. Voter suppression was legalized. And in 2016, as much as we want to say that Secretary Clinton lost to Donald Trump, it was really just a reincarnation of a white backlash to Black progress, because because 63% of white men and 52% of white women, almost all of the white Christians, decided to vote for an unprepared, narcissistic, bigoted, cyberbullying, non-debt paying man that exploited his workers and evaded taxes, because whenever there is black progress, there will always be a white backlash. In 2020, we saw record numbers of Americans go to the polls to defeat whenever that movement is called. And we also sent a Jewish man from Georgia and a black man from Georgia to the Senate. That sounds like progress, but as soon as that election was over, more than 440 bills were introduced in 49 states in order to restrict the black vote and the brown vote, because whenever there is black progress, there will always be a white backlash. That's why we now see the lowest number of black unemployment in history and some of the highest wages that black people have ever learned. But in 2024, the insurrectionist in chief is back on the ballot after staging a coup against his own government alongside 91 criminal charges and hundreds of millions of dollars owed to people he violated in business are with his body. And I can't help but say that this is nothing more than a white backlash to black progress. Oh, but I'm looking at some survivors in here today that can say that's just how life is, that every time we have one step forward, we have to be prepared for pushes back and nudges back and shunking back. Am I talking to anybody in here today that can say, oh, but I'm a survivor? I've been through backlash, but every time backlash emerges, I answer it with progress, because anytime they want to snatch me back, that's when I plant my feet, that's when I lift my head, that's when I raise my voice, that's when I call on the Lord. Are there any survivors in here today that can say, you don't know the stuff I survived and survived again and survived again? I'm a multi-crisis survivor. You are looking at somebody who's been through pain and heartache and oppression and dejection and rejection, but I'm still here, because when you know who your God is, it does not matter the backlash, because you serve a God of progress. I wish somebody would just open your mouth and shout progress. We have a God that will push us forward when life tries to draw us back. Am I talking to anybody in the church today that can thank God that whenever there's backlash to your progress, you just answer it with more strength, you answer it with more grit, you answer it with more grace, you answer it with more poise, you answer it with more power, because whenever there is a backlash, you better be sure that there will be progress again.